Hi, I'm Martin Albrechtsen.
Hi guys, I'm Saido Berahino.
Hi, I'm Darren Carter.
You're listening to the Baggies Podcast, giving you the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. Hello and welcome back to the Baggies Podcast, where of course we're giving you all the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. We're back again today with another episode, and in today's episode we'll be giving the thoughts on the start of the season. We'll be taking a look back at this afternoon's defeat to Blackburn Rovers. We'll also be asking the question, what do Albion really need in the transfer window? And we'll be taking a look ahead at the two games coming up this week. But for that, we're joined by Tom, aka Baggies Bulletin. Tom, how are you doing? Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, glad to come back and chat, and yeah, thank you once again for inviting me on, mate.
It's great to have you. Yeah, is it your third or fourth appearance on the show now? I think
I'm racking them up now, mate. Yeah. I must be up there as maybe, top guest in terms of appearances. Yeah. I don't know. What do you reckon?
I think so. I think you must be there or thereabouts. We've had something on 3 times or so, but I think with this episode you might have topped them. So I think that deserves a medal, certificate, or something along those lines. Yeah, but
I feel really privileged. I do, honestly.
No, but it's great to have you on. Of course, you're obviously still running Baggies Bulletin, from those that have heard your voice before on the podcast. How are things over there? And just for those who haven't heard you, what sort of stuff are you getting up to over there at the moment?
Yes, mate. Yeah, the Instagram page is still going strong. Still updating regularly and trying to do as many videos as possible. It's been a bit hectic start of the season, just obviously summer holidays with the kids and stuff, trying to get the content on there. But yeah, I'm hoping as the season progresses to get more content on there and hopefully maybe get onto some other platforms. But I've been saying that for about 18 months now, and it just hasn't materialized yet, mate. So fingers crossed this is the season I can maybe get onto YouTube and whatnot.
I think it's got to be, mate. I remember you coming on, got to be like last October or so now, when we spoke about this, and that was when I asked you about Baggies Bulletin. That was one of the first things you said. So I think a YouTube channel for the Baggies Bulletin has got to come, mate. I think the people want it.
Out, mate. Mate, I've got it all set up, like the page and everything. I've got to buy a bit more, a few odds and ends, and then just kind of pull my finger out and get on it. But I will, I think, this season. The season run.
This season, yeah, it's got to be, yeah. But I don't know if it's going to be the season for Albion so far, though, Tom. Of course, starting off the season with a couple of draws, defeat to Blackburn, and obviously that win in the cup. How are you feeling? I've seen some people disappointed, some people quite encouraged by what they've seen. What's your take on things so far?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag, isn't it? It's the game against Middlesbrough, the opener against Middlesbrough away. That was a game of 2 halves, wasn't it? We were poor in the first half. Middlesbrough controlled the game, probably should have been more than 1 up. And then second half, we were obviously a lot better, got the equaliser, and put in a half decent showing. And then the game against Watford on Monday evening just gone, that was probably the best Albion performance I've seen for some time. It was just an absolutely fantastic performance, and the only thing that let us down was obviously our finishing. And we more than deserved to come away with 3 points after the performance against Watford. So, after that, you're thinking, wow, okay, that was a superb performance, fully deserved the 3 points. And I was kind of thinking, if we can hit these performance levels more times than not and perform like that for the majority of the season, then we've got a good chance. Watford are one of the favourites. They've just come down from the Premier League. And then obviously we had the cup game and made a lot of changes. So did Sheffield United. But again, it was good to see us get the win. It was 1-0 in the end, but from what I saw from the reports I read in the highlights, it should have been more. We should have won that game more comfortably. And so, going into the game this afternoon against Blackburn, I was full of confidence, to be honest with you. I always put a post up on my Instagram page before every game, kind of giving my take and do a bit of a prediction. And I went for a 2-1 win for Albion. I was feeling confident especially after that performance against Watford. But yeah, it was kind of the performance today very much reminded me of last season under Bruce, in that it was kind of a real Jekyll and Hyde performance. There were moments where we seemed to turn it up a notch and play some decent stuff and create some decent chances, but then not put them away. And then there was spells where, we were just really sloppy and we were just giving Blackburn too much time on the ball. And it was all a bit lethargic and mundane. And like I said, it was a kind of bit of a carbon copy of the kind of performances we were churning out last season under Bruce. But like I said, it's just a real mixed bag so far, isn't it? And it's difficult to analyze, isn't it? I guess when that's the case. I don't know what your take is on it, mate.
Yeah, I agree with the second half against Borough was certainly a lot better than the first. I think we really did. I think we got quite battered in the first half, but second half we came out with a lot better. I think Bruce, obviously pushed John Swift a little bit more forward, which helped us a bit with getting on the ball in a bit more dangerous areas, and we can kind of create something. And obviously he got his goal. Watford, I thought we were outstanding. As I echo what you said there. That's one of the best, definitely, over the past 12 months or so. That's got to be the best performance we've seen, and to not come away with it with 3 points is absolutely balmy. But yeah, I thought with the Sheffield United game, I thought it was nice to get a winner. Of course, I don't think you want to. I don't know if you really want to start progressing in the Carabao Cup or not because of the way the scheduling is. I'm not sure if that's something that's on Bruce's mind, but we definitely played well enough to progress, and definitely played well enough to win, as you said, by more than one goal. And I thought for all the world that all of those performances were going to carry on into today. But yeah, I agree. Blackburn, it's sloppy, I think is the word for it. I think, it just felt like one of those games like last season under Bruce, where if you really go for it, you've probably got a chance of getting the win or at least a draw, being 2 goals down. It just felt like it was within our reach, but kind of, we didn't quite go for it in that way. I don't know. It just, it had all the hallmarks of what happened last season, but I suppose we can be encouraged by the fact we created a few chances. It just wasn't, I suppose we're all on a bit of a come down now from that Watford game and possibly a bit of the Sheffield United game, aren't we? We're sort of thinking our expectations are now up here because, we've seen how well they can play, but now we're seeing that sort of performance. I suppose it comes as a real disappointment, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think if you look, I think also you've got to have a little look at how Watford set up against us and how Blackburn set up against us today. And I felt like the game against Watford, their formation, they had like 3 centre backs, didn't they? Wing backs. And I felt like, the 2 midfielders they had, Tom Cleverley and I forget what the other chap's name was, but they were quite similar midfielders to us in that they, didn't have much pace. They weren't very progressive, very much defensive midfielders, and they're very over reliant on those front 3 players, weren't they? Watford, they kept looking for those long balls and to try and hit us on the counter attack. And I just felt maybe against Watford, our formation, our approach, our system suited that much better than today against the Blackburn team, who they were just sitting deep, weren't they? They'd obviously done their homework. They'd maybe looked at, the previous game against Watford and thought, the best way to tackle West Brom is to not kind of come at them and leave ourselves vulnerable to the counter attack and push on like we were against Watford, but to kind of sit deep, soak up the pressure and hit them on the counter attack. And that was kind of our undoing a lot, wasn't it, last season? Teams, when they were setting up like that against us, we were finding it really difficult to break them down. But like you touched on, we did create chances today, and I do think the 3 games that we've played in the league so far, it definitely does, to me, we are more creative. That's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say. You know, I definitely feel that we're more of a creative force this season. You know, and a lot of that's down to the additions of Jed Wallace and John Swift. You know, I think those two yeah, they've definitely turned us into a more creative force. And yeah, I feel like we are going to be better going forward and attacking this season. You know, a lot of it down to those two and kind of the form of Grady Diangana. You know, he's starting to look kind of back to his best, isn't he? So yeah, you know, like you said, like we had a little chat before you hit record. You know, I'm not getting too downbeat from the defeat today. Yeah, it a bit disappointing considering how well we played against Watford and then progressing in the cup against Sheffield United. But you know, this is the other thing Albion fans kind of, you know, they don't look at the other factors sometimes. Blackburn have had a fantastic start to the season themselves.
Yeah.
You know, they've won every game. They, you know, they'd won the 2 league games and the cup game going into the game against today, so they were full of confidence, and they've still got some good players within their ranks. You know, Diaz for one. You know, he's a fantastic player at this level. And the heat as well. You know, it was really hot again today, wasn't it? You know, there was drinks breaks, wasn't there, in the match, and yeah, that can sometimes add to that sluggishness and more mistakes happening and so on. So yeah, I'm not getting too downbeat, mate.
Yeah, neither. I you know, I've seen quite a few on social media, you know, throwing their hands in the air, you know, wondering what's going on. But yeah, I don't see a lot of fault, you know, in the performance. I think we were a little bit sluggish, as you said. You know, the passing in the final third was a little bit off. I don't think, you know, I don't think the likes of Swift and Wallace had as good of a game as they did last time out. So I think that probably contributed to things. You know, we saw less chances being created. And as you said, I think Blackburn did their homework. They defended quite deep, and you know, they were so clinical as well, weren't they, Tom? You know, they were everything that we weren't really in the final third, which is, they, as you've mentioned before we hit record, you know, 2 shots on target, 2 goals. That's you can't get much more clinical. And you said Brereton Diaz is in there, and you know, he's just a quality striker, and I suppose that's what we're missing.
Well, there were 2 great strikes as well, weren't they? Both shots from outside the box, and both tucked away bottom corner. And yeah, this is my biggest concern from the season so far. Is in, you know, like I just said, I do feel like we are much better going forward now. We've brought in some attacking talents who we know will create chances. But yeah, we still look. We've still got that inability to put away more chances than not, haven't we? From the games we've played so far, and this is the concern. Probably the biggest concern I've got so far this season is that we've got to get this monkey off our back, because last season, you know, it was our downfall last season. You know, with all that XG and all the rest of it, you know, we created so many chances but just put so little away, didn't we? And we you know, if we've got aspirations of being in the top 6, you know, or even challenging for that top 2, we've just got to become more clinical in front of goal. And you know, I don't think, you know, obviously the bad news about DK being out again, and you know, you know, we've spoken about it. In fact, I do rate Grant. I think he is a good player at this level. You know, he scored 18, 19 goals last season for us. So, you know, he knows where the back of the net is. But I always feel he's one of those players that needs 3-4 chances before he puts one away. Very much like the game against Watford.
Yeah.
You know, it took him 3-4 decent chances before he buried one. You know, it was ironic because it was probably the hardest chance he got. But yeah, he's very much like that. Consistently, I find Grant, in that he needs a couple of chances before he buries one. He's not super clinical, and I think we're still very much lacking that, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I know Grant missed a chance late on as well. You know, it was a good save from the goalkeeper, and see Diangana, I think, you know, good to touch on him as well. It was a much better performance, I thought, from Grady. Of course, he scored, but I wouldn't really be shouting home about the goal that he scored, because it was a wild deflection, but he certainly could have had one earlier, and it was definitely the easier of the chances when he sort of came diving in at the back post and put the ball wide. But I don't know about you, Tom, but I was really impressed with him today. I think he was probably the brightest spark in the front sort of 4 area.
I think so, definitely. I think he was he was our biggest attacking threat. Like you said, the goal had a massive deflection, big element of luck there. But yeah, the performance probably deserved a goal, to be fair. And yeah, it is great to see him just picking up some form. It's that season under Bilic. We've just not seen it, have we, since then? When we've all kind of kept going on about, there's a player in there, but as time's gone on, we've all started to worry, well, are we going to see that player again? But touch wood, so far this season, there's definitely signs there. And like you said, Swift and Wallace were really quiet today. Swift had a poor game, I thought. Gave the ball away a lot. But there's going to be days where that happens, and we can't just rely on one or two guys to be that creative threat, that force going forward. So it's good to see Dean Garner kind of stepping up to the plate and becoming a threat himself. So yeah, I've been pleased with Dean Garner so far this season, and I just think just keep him in the team, because I just think he's one of those guys. If he keeps playing, I just think he'll keep on improving. I think he could be a big player for us this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we spoke about it. Probably, I think it was on your live, actually, or your Instagram live that we did. Around the transfer window opening, and how we said about how Swift and Wallace could be, a bit of a key to unlocking Dean Garner, because they take a bit of that attention away. And I think that proved today. He had a bit of space. I think Swift and Wallace weren't having the best games, but they were still pretty heavily marked when they got the ball. So a bit of space for Dean Garner. I think, as you said, a bit of game time. I think he was in and out of the team a little too spontaneously really last season. There wasn't really a massive chance for him to really get going and get some form together. I know he'll probably not think much of the goal, but it's a goal at the end of the day, and he'll probably take a bit of confidence home from that, and of course his performance. So yeah, hopefully we see a lot more of him, and hopefully we see a bit more of what we saw a couple of seasons ago. But today was definitely a good start and a good step in the right direction. And yeah, one of the points I wanted to talk about, Tom, was of course the midfield, because we talked about it a little bit off air there, and I think that was a bit of the heart of our sluggishness, if I have to be honest. Livermore and Malumbi starting in midfield. I was a real big fan of the way they both played against Watford. I thought Livermore still taking some pelters on Twitter, for his performance against Watford, but I still didn't think they did. They did the jobs asked of them. But today it was a bit of a different story. As you said, Blackburn were pretty willing to kind of let them two have the ball, and it didn't really come to much avail with them two, and they were both substituted after about 60 minutes, I think.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'd be concerned. Well, I think the thing is, like you said, we had a little chat before you hit recording, that we've obviously got Yukozlu to come in, haven't we? And the game against, even against Watford, his little cameo at the end against Watford, his hour or so against Sheffield United midweek, and then coming on today, he showed how good he is, how classy he is, and he can draw, like you said, he draws players to him, but he's got that ability to hold them off and make a pass. He's more proactive, I feel, and more progressive than both Livermore and Malumbi. So I think that's one thing we've got to remember as Albion fans is when Yukozlu is fully fit and firing, he'll be in that starting 11. I can't see Steve Bruce not starting him once he's fully fit, because he's already shown that he's going to be a class above at this level, in my opinion. But it's the concern is, well, when's that going to be? Because I saw something today, I can't remember who it was. It was someone like Joe Chapman or the new chap on the Express and Star, and they were discussing Yukozlu, saying it could be a while yet before he's fully fit, but we all know what the championship's like. The games come thick and fast. We've got 2 games coming up this week. We've got a midweek match and then the game at the weekend. So, the concern I have is obviously with Mowat going as well to Middlesbrough on loan the other day, is that Malumbi and Livermore are our 2 midfielders at this moment in time, 2 starting midfielders. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think that's a good enough midfield pairing if we have got genuine aspirations of going up. And the game against Watford, I'll be honest, I'll hold my hands up. I was surprised at how well both of them played. I'm not taking anything away. They both played. Malumbi had a great game. It was probably the best game I've seen Malumbi play against Watford. I thought he was absolutely fantastic. And we've spoke about this before, because I think you had the same opinion as me. I do think there's a player in there, Malumbi. I do rate him, and I do think, there's a player, and I think a lot of Albion fans forget how young he is, because he's still only I think he's only just turned 22, so he's still quite a young lad, isn't he? But and I don't like going at individual players and being critical, but I just don't think Livermore is good enough ultimately for where we want to be, and for the aim of where we want to be. I just think, and I think today against Blackburn, you take the Watford game out of the equation. I thought he was mediocre against Middlesbrough and mediocre today against Blackburn, and I'll be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if he starts the next couple of games and he puts in similar performances. And that Watford game was a bit of a freak, shall we say? So I've definitely got a bit of concern there. If it's going to take a while for Yokozlu to come back, and then, but then it's the kind of cover question thing as well, isn't it? In that, okay, well, Yokozlu's fully fit, but then what? We've only got 3 midfielders. We've let in Mowat go. We've got to bring someone in again, haven't we? We've got to surely replace Mowat, because I don't think you can go through the course of the Championship campaign with just 3 specialist central midfielders, can you?
Yeah, I agree. I think Livermore, for me, I think his time's contract out at the end of this season. I think you're kind of coming down to, I think, probably the end of his Albion career. I think it's kind of time for him to take a back step, maybe stop relying on him. I think you got the perfect replacement in Yokozlu when he is fit. I think Malumbi's a nice younger alternative as well to maybe play alongside. So I think, that's when Yokozlu's fully fit, of course. I think, a lot of Albion fans, I don't think realise, that it takes time for a player to get up to speed. Player that hasn't played, a game since May before he came on against Watford. So, he's got to be given time to get up to speed. And he looks good. Don't get me wrong, he does look good. And he still looks a class above a lot of players in this league. But, we still need to give him a little bit of time, still need to give him time to gel. As for Mowat, I think they've taken a gamble, I think is what they've done. I think they've gambled. Mowat, who I think is up there as one of the higher earners, they've taken a bit of a chance on Middlesbrough paying his wages, and hopefully they can put that towards the striker that I think we're missing a little bit more than perhaps the midfield. But what was your take on Mowat going? Because I saw lots of mixed reactions. I wasn't massively pleased, but I could in a way I could understand how we've gone about it.
Yeah, I think so. I think the biggest concern for me, and I think I put this on the post I put on my Instagram page, where I said I finally felt like we had a bit of depth in midfield, in that we had 4 central midfielders, who could potentially 4 central midfielders who can play at this level, shall we say? Should we put it that way? And a bit of competition there, a bit of depth, especially with the cup competitions coming up and so on. And then there was a few whispers and murmurs on social media that Middlesbrough were interested, but I honestly thought, there's not much truth to that. There can't be, And then obviously out the blue, it was confirmed that he's gone. And the biggest reason I'm surprised is because, unless something happens in the next couple of days, unless we bring someone in to replace him, we've obviously reduced our options. And I think the other thing that was the biggest concern for me is we've obviously strengthened the rival. I'm still of the opinion that Middlesbrough will have a good season. They'll be in and around the top 6 this season. So that's bugged me a bit, to be honest with you, because I think he'll go and do well at Middlesbrough. Because this is the thing I think with Bruce, is that I don't think Mowat fits the system, and I think this is one of the reasons why Bruce has been willing to let him go, is that obviously Mowat played in that very specific formation and approach under Ismail at Barnsley, where he was fantastic, and then that was carried over into the first half of the season with us, where he had a decent start, didn't he, with Albion before he picked up his injury. And then, his second half to the season, combination of the injury he picked up and Bruce chopping and changing, trying new formations and whatnot. He had a poor second half to the season, and I don't think he fits that kind of what's it called? That kind of double pivot, two man central midfielders with attacking mid in front of him. I don't think he suits that. I think he's better with like a wing back system, 3 centre backs, like he played under Barnsley, Ishmael at Barnsley, Ishmael with ourselves, and which he's going to go and play under Wilder at Middlesbrough. So I can see why Bruce has done it, and I think that the obvious reason he's done it is, like you said, in that Moet is going to be on good wages. We know he's on good wages because that was one of the reasons we convinced him to join us when he was a free agent. And they've had to possibly reduce the wage bill in order to try and bring another striker in because of the DK situation. So it's one of those, like you said, you can see both. You can see the reasoning behind it, but it still doesn't take away some of the kind of concern and disappointment from the fan base, I think.
Yeah, I get the concern. I guess that it's, you can see both arguments for it, can't you? You can see Moet being a high earner. You can probably see him being, third, maybe fourth choice midfielder. So, do you really want that much money sitting on your bench? I think the real question is, can we replace him? Can we bring somebody in of that quality? I've heard loans and stuff mentioned about, younger Premier League players, but I haven't really, there's not really been much action. No. So that's what concerns me a little bit, is that, obviously Bruce, he's typical. He's done it before at loads of clubs. He's waited until the end, the start of the Premier League season and towards the end of the transfer window to wait to see which sort of youngsters they filter through and allow for loans. And I think it's about that time, and to not hear anything on it is a little bit concerning. But then again, there's still a little bit of time. So yeah, I've got to remain optimistic. I do think it's a bit of a gamble, but if we can get maybe a youngster midfielder in on a loan where he's free as long as they want him to play some games, I think that would be quite tidy to fill in for Moet for the time being. But yeah, I've got a feeling he's probably going to do pretty well under Wilder. He seems like a typical Chris Wilder player for me. So I think, I do think he's going to do well. But yeah, it seems a bit of an odd choice, but I can get why the striker is the paramount importance of this window. Finally, Tom, keeping on the subject of sort of Blackburn, but do you think there's a case for Gardner Hickman to come in somewhere? Because I thought he was really impressive against Sheffield United, playing right back, of course, where we've not really seen too much of him. But no, he got he did pretty well. He drove us forward. I don't know how you feel about maybe giving him a chance. He was on the bench for the first time after that Watford game. He wasn't in the squad.
Yeah, well, this is it, isn't it? I think Bruce, from the comments I've seen from Bruce in the past, he sees him as a right-sided player, doesn't he? Whether that's kind of right wing or right back or right wing back. I remember reading an interview with Steve Bruce where he said that. For me, Gardner Hickman showed last season that he can be a useful player in midfield as well as on the right. I thought he put in some really good performances in midfield last season. In a struggling, struggling team, but in a team that wasn't playing particularly well. He put in some standout performances and did really well and kind of endeared himself to the Albion fans. So I'd definitely say yes. I'd like to see him be given an opportunity in midfield, especially if Malumbi and Livermore continue to put in mediocre performances. Then I think he deserves a shot. If if we haven't brought anyone in, say, but I don't think Bruce will do it. I just, like I said, just from what he said in the past in pre-season where he was getting played, and then like you said against Sheffield United where he played against he played right back and he put in a really good performance. I just think Bruce sees him as cover for Furlong, which is good, because that was something we discussed, wasn't it, before the start of the season, in that we felt right back and left back were there were concerns because Furlong and Townsend haven't really got any kind of competition. Maybe that's what led to them underperforming last season. But in pre-season, in that game against Sheffield United, I think Ashworth and Gardner-Hickman have shown that they could come in and do a job if something happened to Furlong and Townsend. And I think that's good because, like you said, it allows Bruce maybe to focus his attention elsewhere, especially striker, which we all know we need. So I'm not too stressed about Gardner-Hickman. I think if Bruce was to play him in midfield, I'd be happy with it because I think he can do a job there as well, and he's shown he can do a job at right back as well. I just think he's a great player to have in the squad at this moment in time. I think he's proven himself. I think he can be an asset for us once again this season.
Yeah, I think I agree, and I think he could be some in midfield. I think he could be something that we're maybe missing. Somebody who's able to drive the ball forwards. He's obviously such a positive player. Every time we saw him at wing back, we saw him in midfield. Every time he got the ball, he wanted to go forward with it. So I think maybe it could be something missing that maybe we're missing in that midfield. Maybe alongside you, Kuzlu, maybe give him a chance and see what he can do. I know I've been impressed with Malumbi, and we both spoke last season about how there probably is a player in there, and there's a bit of time to settle, a bit of time to get to grips, and alongside the right midfielders and somebody a bit more attacking in front of him, maybe he could be quite good. But I think Gardner-Hickman could be somebody good to play alongside you, because if you give him a chance, and again at fullback as well, he could be good cover. But I still see those fullbacks as a little bit of an area of a bit of weakness for me, because as you said, there's no real competition for either of those players, and you could possibly see them becoming a little bit complacent if there's not somebody there to genuinely push them.
Yeah, I think, like you said, I think this kind of just is the point that all Albion fans are making, aren't they, at this moment in time? Is that, like you said, there's been glimpses so far this season that we've got the makings of a good team. The guys we've brought in, we showed against Watford that we can put in a real promising, exciting attacking performance, but we still need signings, don't we? We still need signings, absolutely 100%. We still need to bring a few more in. And I think you're right. Like I said, I think Gardner-Hickman and Ashworth proved themselves in the cup game against Sheffield United that they're capable of coming in. But it's like you said, if something serious was to happen to either Furlong or Townsend, you'd be reluctant, wouldn't you, to have to rely on one of those two young lads to fill in at right back or left back for the remainder of the season. And I think with, like you said, the aim this season of gaining promotion, I just feel like some cover would definitely be needed still in those fullback positions. And then, like you said, midfield and up top, I think if we can strengthen in those areas and bring in some players who are capable and good at this level, then I think we're pretty much there. I think we could have the making of a really good team, but it's that whether we do that or not, isn't it? It's the whole kind of Albion, like you said, the gamble of waiting until because this is I'll tell you, this is the concern I've got. Is like you said, the concern I've got is that we are going to wait now until the end of the window to do more transfer business. And I guess the concern I have is that that's not for another 2-3 weeks away now. And like I said earlier on in the video, the games are coming thick and fast, and we've only got 2 points after 3 games. And like I said, I'm not panicking or anything like that. But if we go a few more games and we're still not picking up any points, and we're dropping points, and we're kind of sitting down there, the pressure will start to be directed at Bruce. That the fans, it's not going to take much for the fans to get on Bruce's back because of last season. And this is the concern I have, is I think we've got to try and get some business done sooner rather than later, because the worry I've got is if we go 2 or 3, 4 more games, maybe we get 1 win, a couple of defeats, we don't start picking up some regular victories, the fans will start turning on Bruce. I'm no doubt about that whatsoever. That's another little concern I guess I've got at this moment in time, is that we're gonna we're going to gamble and we're going to wait till the end of the window to try and make some signings, when I feel like we need to bring them in now, really, to kind of to get going.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things we haven't really spoken about on the podcast is those loans that I suppose controlling shareholder, as he's called, Guach and Lai, owes us. I think, I know it's really frustrating, and I think it's pretty bad that we've had the money taken out of the club. But how much good would 9 million do us now at the moment, Tom? Even in January, I mean, it's such a massive amount of money that we could potentially have towards transfer business, and it's frustrating that perhaps Bruce has maybe got his hands a little bit tied with what he can and can't have in this window. And at the end of the day, this is the season that needs to sort of end in promotion, because the parachute payments, I mean, it's such a massive amount of money.
This is it, mate, 100%. And this, you used the word gamble earlier, and it's just a huge gamble again by the owners and those controlling the purse strings, because look at the signs we made. We've made some good signings, but we haven't spent a penny yet, have we? Well, tell a lie, that we spent a bit on Malumbi, didn't we? Who, that was all kind of pre-agreed, wasn't it, before last season when he came on loan and so on. So you take Malumbi out the equation, the guys we've brought in, Swift, Wallace and Yukuzi, they've all been free agents, so there's no been any transfer fee there, has there? I'm not saying that they're not on good wages. All three of them are probably up there as our highest earners, I would have thought. But we've not spent any money yet, have we? In terms of transfer fees. So yeah, and Bruce, you're right. Bruce's hands are tied, and I think that the situation with Moet proves that, in that he's probably had the instructions that we need to move some out in order for him to bring in who he wants to bring in still. And Moet probably wasn't up there in terms of people he's looking to ship out, towards the top. But he's the only one who's probably got any genuine interest from anyone. Do you know what I mean? So he's probably reluctantly had to say, okay, well, I'll let Moet go to a potential rival this season in order to free up the wages he was on. So yeah, he has got his hands tied behind his back, but the fans won't. The vast majority of fans won't think about that. If we continue to stutter in terms of results, because like I said, there's been promising signs in those first 3 games. But if we can continue to stutter in terms of results, the fans will get on Bruce's back. They will, undoubtedly. Yeah. And so for me, it would be a big gamble if we are to wait until September, the end of August, start of September to get those players in, because there could have been 4-5 more championship games played before then. So yeah, it's a gamble. It's a gamble for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I know it's difficult, and Bruce can't do anything about the loans and stuff that have been taken out. But you just hope that money gets repaid by January at least, and then we could kind of look to maybe bring somebody in January, or if we haven't done so in the summer, that's made the difference. I mean, the striker position, of course, Tom, is a massive miss for us. Of course, DK injured. It's another unfortunate injury, and he can't seem to catch a break with the injuries for us at the moment. I mean, are there any names that maybe you fancy up front from those available? I've seen a few knocking about.
Well, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because obviously a lot of the Albion fans are chatting about potential targets and this, that, and the other at the moment. And like you said, Bruce has come out in a couple of interviews, hasn't he? And he's talked about utilising the loan market, especially those Premier League teams, once they've decided who they want to keep and potentially move out. But I don't know. The thing that worries me is that, I'll give you an example. One name I keep seeing thrown around a lot is that Liam Delap at Man City. He's scored a load of goals for fun at youth level for Man City, and it's rumoured that Guardiola wants to get him out on loan to further his experience and get some proper first team football under his belt. But for me, that would be a big gamble, real big gamble. I honestly feel like we need to replace DK with someone with experience, someone who knows where the back of the net is at this level. I honestly do. DK could be out for 2-3 months, is it? I was reading
Yeah,
around there. Around,
he could even miss the World Cup, which I think is a massive blow for him, isn't it?
Yeah, but for me, I think we need to be looking to bring in someone who's proven at this level, not a youngster who's got potential, but it's always a risk, isn't it? The Championship, it's a tough old division. You come up up against a lot of old school centre back pairings, don't you? Get stuck in and are rough and tough and all the rest of it, and having to rely on a youngster to score the goals for you. It can happen. It has happened in the past, but a lot of times it hasn't, and it's a big risk in my opinion. In terms of names, I don't know. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. There's one name I've seen thrown around, and personally, I think I wouldn't want to see him brought in, because I think he's getting on a little bit now. But Lewis Grabban, who was at Forest last season, he's played in the Championship for a long time now. He's scored a hell of a lot of goals in the Championship, a lot of experience. Like I said, I wouldn't want to bring him in now, because I think he's 33, 34 nearly. If we were to bring him in, it begs the question, why didn't we just keep hold of Andy Carroll? You know what I mean? But that's the kind of player I'm thinking. Maybe he's just someone who's scored goals at this level, who could come in and hit the ground running straight away for us, and who also wouldn't mind sitting on the bench sometimes as well, behind Grant maybe, or behind DK when he comes back and comes back to full fitness. It's a tough one, isn't it? I think. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I'd really like to see us maybe bring in a younger striker as well as an experienced striker, if we could. Maybe if you see a lot of Premier League clubs, sometimes they essentially give younger players to Championship clubs for free, and you get them without really all the loan fees and paying a wage and stuff, just for them to get some game time. But I think that'll probably be quite difficult, because I'm not convinced we can guarantee a young striker game time constantly. Especially if we do bring in an experienced striker, if we do have DK back, a couple of months' time, if we do have Grant as well, I think it's probably going to be something that I can already see it's probably going to be Lewis Grabban, to be honest. I can just see it happening. I wouldn't be too against it. I mean, he's probably a bit old, but I suppose just a bit of a stopgap really to cover what we're missing. I can't really think of anybody else out there.
I've been having a running joke for weeks now with a couple of the other well, you're in one of the chats with us, aren't you, on Instagram? And I've been saying it's going to be Grabban since kind of it come out about DK, that it's going to be Grabban for the one, because he's a free agent. We only seem to be bringing in frees, don't we, this window? Two, because I'm pretty sure he worked with Bruce at Aston Villa. So when Bruce was manager at Aston Villa, I'm sure Grabban was with Bruce at Villa. And the other point is, like I said, he scored goals at this level. He knows where the back of the net is. I think he scored about 10, 12 goals for Forest last season. He was in and out of the team. And like I said, he'd probably join, and he'd be willing to kind of play second fiddle at times, wouldn't he? I think he could kind of he'd be convinced to come in and play that kind of role. So like I said, I think in terms of realistic signings, that one very much ticks a lot of the boxes, I think, for the club. It's a shame, because it was funny, wasn't it? Because we were linked after Bruce confirmed about DK. He kind of come out and said that he was interested in that Keenan Davis.
Yeah, and
who was obviously on loan. Well, he was obviously on loan at Forest last season. Villa still loaning him out, but he's a bit older, and he's not like super young, is he? He's like 20, is he 23, 24, something like that.
Yeah. His contract's out at the end of the season, I think, as well at Villa, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, and he showed at Forest last season that he can perform at this level. He can be a force. He's a big lad, real handful, similar kind of player to DK. And when I saw that, I thought, you know what, that ticks a lot of boxes. He'd be a decent sign, in my opinion. But then obviously, it was confirmed that he's heading down to Watford for a medical, and we were too late. So that was disappointing, because I think he would have been he would have been a good signing. I think that would have made a lot of sense. The other one, which is interesting, is that Cameron Archer at Aston Villa, who we were linked with.
I think he'd be brilliant. I think
he would. I think he is, from what I saw of him last season and from what I've read about his exploits, at youth level for Aston Villa, he knows where the back of the net is. Very clinical. He showed that at Preston, didn't he, last season when he was on loan? And I remember when we played him, he impressed me when we played. I think he scored against us when we played him. Yeah. He'd be a good signing, I think, because he's obviously a young lad, but he's got a bit of experience already in the Championship, proven he can score at this level. He's local, obviously, but I just think from what I've read that Gerrard's just kind of keeping hold of him, I think, until as late as possible, isn't he? Because I know they've got Watkins and Ings, but I think that's pretty much it, isn't it, really, when you think about the strikers Villa have got. So whether they're going to loan him out or not, it remains to be seen. But he'd be a good signing, I think. He'd be a really good sign. I think the Albion fans would get excited. I think they'd forget about the fact he's come from Aston Villa, but because I think he'd hit the ground running and start scoring some goals for us, I think. So that'd probably be my personal choice. Cameron Archer, maybe not the exact kind of type of player as DK. He's a bit smaller, isn't he? And a bit quicker on his feet, plays off the shoulder a bit more. But I still think he could be brought in and start scoring some goals with us. Likes of Swift and Wallace and Dean Garner and Grant playing around him. So yeah.
I'd take him in a heartbeat if we could get hold of him. I think he's a really, really good. It's just a finisher, isn't he? Really, I'm not convinced how much he'd add in terms of build-up play, but at the end of the day, I think we've got other players who can do that for him, and other players who can lay those chances on a plate. I think, I know obviously Villa have got a couple of strikers in front of him, but he's still very much in the mix at the Villa at the moment. I don't know if they're going to bring somebody in before the deadline. Maybe they're going to look at another striker. If they do, I can only see Archer being allowed out on loan, and if that's the case, I think he'd be fantastic for us. I think exactly what we need, and possibly could play alongside DK at some point this season. Maybe if you put them together, maybe that seems like a pretty lethal strike force. So yeah, I'd look forward to seeing if what happens with Archer if he does come down to the Championship. I think what I said after the Watford game is anybody watching that game, a young striker in the Premier League, you'd probably be backing yourself to score lots of goals in this side, after watching the chances that we put on a plate for Grant in that game. So I think if we can get Archer, that would be smashing. I think he'd score some goals. But Tom, moving on to next week, and as you said, they're coming thick and fast. Another 2 games. Cardiff, of course, are 5th in the league. We face them on Wednesday. Hull, 2nd in the league. We face them on Saturday. I guess the question I have is how can we improve going forward, Tom, without the blatantly obvious put the ball in the back of the net? But how do you think we can get around sort of not winning a game yet and getting the first win on the board?
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because I was chatting to someone earlier, and we were saying that Cardiff game on Wednesday, it's not a massive game. It's only the 4th game in the season, but it's kind of touching on what I said earlier about pressure building on Bruce. I think we need to get that win, don't we, sooner rather than later, to like I said, get a monkey off our back and for Bruce, relieve a bit of pressure on Bruce. I've seen it. I saw Cardiff. Who did I watch them play against? Birmingham. They were on the telly, weren't they, on Saturday? Yeah, and I didn't watch all. I watched a bit of it, and I fancy us to we should be beating teams like Cardiff. Let's put it that way. We've got to be going all out on Wednesday to get the win against Cardiff. They've got some good players in their team, but these are the teams we've got to be beating if we want to be going up this season. But for me, I just get. We were talking about Yokozlu and being fully fit and stuff, but he showed against Sheffield United that he could play 55 minutes, 60 minutes. For me, I'd just do that. I'd start him and just see how long his legs last for, and then if needs be, make a change later on in the game. I think that, for me, I just think I think that's where the problem is for me. The biggest problem for us at the minute is midfield. I think we've created some chances, but they've come from Swift and out wide, haven't they? I think midfield. I think if we quicker, as soon as Yokozlu gets in that team, I honestly think he'll be a massive lift. I honestly do. I think he will improve us tenfold. So that's the only thing I can think that we can do at this moment in time in terms of the players he has that could really have an impact, if you know what I mean. Is Yokozlu coming into that team? Yeah, there's a few others that you could maybe chop and change, but yeah, I think the team that started today is probably our strongest team at this moment in time, other than Yokozlu coming in for Livermore. That's my personal opinion.
I agree. Yeah, I think Yokozlu, I think he's just a massive boost. I think he just gives you everything you probably need in that midfield. He can carry the ball, he'll win it back. He's very composed on the ball, and I think what we weren't today is very composed on the ball. I think we were passing it. I'd love to see a little chart on how many passes we ended up putting into the advertising board, but it must have been quite a few, because every time we seemed to get into the final third, that was what we were doing. So I think somebody with a bit of composure, Yokozlu strikes me as that sort of person. So yeah, I think we can only get better, and I think the performances have been encouraging. I think the wins will come, Tom. So fingers crossed. Cardiff Hall, we can have a couple of positive games at home as well, where we seem to do a lot better as well. I saw a few tweets about the away form. Tom, is that a bit of a worry for you? Heading into the season, I think I've seen a few people saying the players don't seem to like playing away from home, which I don't think anybody does, but it's something that maybe needs to be addressed.
Yeah, it was last season. It was concerning, wasn't it? And like you said, you want to avoid kind of carrying that on into this season, don't you? It's you don't want to be over reliant on your home form. We'll see. I think we've got to give it a few more games yet. Like I said today against Blackburn, we weren't at our best, but we come up against a team in form on a real hot day. There's I guess what I'm trying to say is, I just don't want the fans to look too hard into it and get too downbeat from it. We still created enough chances to probably have won the game if we were more clinical. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's something that was, we were terrible away from home last season, weren't we? And we've got to improve on that if we're to kind of get in that top six mix this season. The home form. The one thing as well, we didn't touch on against Watford. The fans were absolutely fantastic. The atmosphere was superb, and I was worried, to be honest with you, that because of how lackluster and mediocre last season was, and the fans kind of being split as to whether Bruce is the man to take us forward and all the rest of it, that the atmosphere was going to be flat against Watford. But fair play, I thought it was really top draw. The fans were right behind the players, even when we went 1-0 down. And I just hope we can keep that going, because the fans can have such an important role, can't they? For a team, especially a team looking to achieve promotion. So I'm just hoping we can kind of keep that atmosphere going, get behind the players like we did against Watford, because I think that will help us as well, big time.
100%, mate. The atmosphere was great against Watford. Away support was still really good today, despite all the financial issues in the country at the moment. The away end was still massively packing with numbers. So it's great to see that the support still goes. And 2 games at the Hawthorns, I think the atmosphere can only be as good as what happened against Watford. But Tom, it's been a real jam-packed episode, trying to squeeze everything in from sort of the past couple of weeks. But Tom, it's been a pleasure to have you on. But before we let you go, do you want to sort of plug anything going on over on Baggies Bulletin, or sort of give us a little pitch as to what we can expect from stuff over on the Instagram page?
Yes, mate. Like I said at the start of the vid, I've got all these plans inside of my head to kind of expand and whatnot, but unfortunately, I haven't had the time. So I'm just still on Instagram at the moment. Baggies Bulletin. I think you'll put the stuff underneath, won't you? If you're not already following, guys, it'll be really appreciated if you come and check out the page. Just keep up to date with all the Albion news. I try to, but I like to try and get debates, try and get people involved, and put kind of debates on there and get people's opinions, and try and put my videos up and giving my take on things and stuff. So if, like I said, if you're not following, really appreciate if you came and checked it out and had a look.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll leave some links in the description for you, Tom, but it's been a pleasure having you on again. We'll have to get you that certificate printed soon, but yeah, it's been class having you on again. So thank you so much for joining us.
No worries, mate. Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, a pleasure as always, and a pleasure to have you listening along as always, Albion fans. Make sure you leave us a nice little review if you've enjoyed the episode. Subscribe on your podcast platform or YouTube, and leave us a nice little review. As I said, it really does help us out, get up the charts, and shows other people that people enjoy listening to the podcast. So make sure you do that. And we'll be back again next week for another episode. So thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.